Okay, this is Michael with TAPS-PMA. Um, we've got a few guests on today that we're going to just discuss a couple of things. Again, just to make it clear for the record, we are not providing legal advice or legal opinions. We're not acting as attorneys, as it indicates on our website. We are just free thinking men and women who are sharing our own personal insights and comprehension concerning law and the Constitution and treaties and Supreme Court rulings and whatnot. So Grant, last week we were having our conversation, and a woman was on with us, MJ from, I believe, Colorado. She's completely in agreement. She's on board. She's posterity. She knows that, everything we're saying is true and accurate. She's on board with that. As are several other people, obviously. But she brought up an issue last week that I wanted you to maybe give some clarity to, because when I was talking about the federal plane, the federal jurisdiction, she kind of, said, well, we don't have a federal government. We're a confederacy, not a federation, or not federal. We're a confederate. So what might you say about that? What was she trying to say? Because that's not something I'm very familiar with. I'm curious what kind of clarification you might give on what she might have been trying to point out.
I would say that we are, in the current state of affairs, the republic is not really being operated. It's being operated federally and territorially to that federal state of affairs. But, this nation was founded on the ideal of federalism, where there was the separation of powers not only between the different branches of government, the legislative, executive, and judiciary, but there is distinct planes of jurisdiction between that federal government that the states created and the states. And that was the ideal of federalism.
And you would say that the republic itself, when the republic was established, that's what they did, create a federal government. The government that they created was
the states created the federal government. Well, to more accurately put it, the court has determined that it was the people, because in the preamble it says "we the people," it doesn't say states. But essentially what that means is we the people of the several states, pursuant to our representatives, created the United States of America. And the primary function of that federal republic was to ensure the blessings of liberty to themselves and their posterity.
Right. What thoughts might you have on her making the statement about us being a confederate? What knowledge, if anything, do you have regarding a confederacy or the Confederates?
Well, the South created the Confederacy, which is a confederation of states, because they separated themselves from the Union of the states.
Okay, so there's that issue that the certain southern states separated themselves from the Union to become a confederacy.
Yeah, and that's why the Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation only took place within the states in secession. It had nothing to do with the other states that had not left the Union, primarily because they would have had to pay for the freed slaves.
All right, so that confederacy then, anybody that might still want to cling to the Confederacy would essentially be saying that they would still agree with the states separating from the Union, essentially.
It sounds to me like what she's saying, but again, they created a republic. And what I'm saying, that the republic's still there because it's the foundational government upon which the territorial government exists, because all authority resides in the people, according to the Supreme Court. And it was the people who created the United States of America. And they created that federal government and gave it certain enumerated powers. And it has no other powers except what we granted it. But the one they used to separate themselves, in my opinion, was Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17, where we gave them plenary powers to do whatever they want to in the 10 Mile Square and the territories. essentially what we said, okay, Congress over there, you're the sovereign. That's why Congress has complete. While there is a municipal government for the District of Columbia, Congress has complete authority. The U.S. government has complete authority over that Washington, D.C.
Right, and only specific authority, limited specific authority over the republic.
No, in the District of Columbia, because we the people, one of the enumerated powers in our republic that we created, when we created that government, we gave them plenary powers in the 10-mile square and the territory, which means essentially that they are sovereigns over there, while we the people retained our sovereignty in the several states, and that sovereignty was maintained when we had legal relations with the United States.
Gotcha.
Citizens of the republic.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's a good point of clarification for people that don't understand that we gave them power over there, meaning in your 10-mile square and in whatever are your territories, like for instance, Guam, Puerto Rico, these other places that were considered their territories. They weren't the states. You have
Right.
your sovereign authority over there in that 10-mile square and in your territories.
Right.
But in our states,
essentially, that's what Ponzi versus Fessenden was saying in regards to the planes of jurisdiction. If you go read the court case, that's what the court was laying out. There's a plane of jurisdiction in the federal territorial plane, and there's the plane of jurisdiction in the several states of the Union.
right.
And the parameters and a contractual agreement between the federal government and the people as state citizens of those states is the Constitution.
Right. Yeah, no, that was, and then what about what was the case again, if you remember it, where the Supreme Court confirmed or ruled that the states, there's no distinction between the people and their state, or the state and the people?
I think it's Penwall versus Stones.
Yeah, because that would be a
distinction. There is no distinction between the people and their states because the people are their sovereigns. That means they're the owners.
right. Now that brings me full circle again. I want to bring that back to this issue again of Confederacy versus federalism. So there's the Republic, and the Republic was a union, and
A union of the several states. Yep.
right. And let's give some clarity to at what point were all 50 of the states. Well, let me ask it like this: were all 50 of the states part of the Union before the Confederacy?
No. Well, no, there was the original 13 states, and the people who were granted sovereignty of those states pursuant to Article 1 of the Treaty of Paris.
Right, which was for
pursuant to that treaty, they were recognized in international law as sovereigns, equals with other sovereigns on the planet. So they created their own government.
Right, for them and their posterity.
Well, it was the reason that they created it was to ensure the blessings of liberty for themselves and their posterity, according to what the people said in their preamble.
Right. So I want to just, again, make as much clarity as I can for this issue of a confederacy. The Confederacy was simply the states that separated from the Union. So what brought them all back together? Were they rejoined the Union, or
the states, I guess maybe she's talking about the states prior to the Revolution and the Treaty of Paris created the Continental Congress, which maybe she's saying created a confederacy. And that may be true. But, that confederacy was put aside by the people because once they got sovereignty recognition, they were going to create a more perfect union. That's what they said in their preamble.
right?
They done created one union, but now that in their sovereign capacity, they're going to create a more perfect union.
Right, exactly. See, little details like that are the things that obviously most people overlook or are not aware of that make the difference, on any of the claims that we as posterity make, which goes to, I guess the point I wanted to make on that is, and again, if you could recite it for me, because I don't,
To me, essentially, if you're one of the posterity of the people, because all of we the people are dead, and all that remains is their posterity, and that posterity has privity of blood, and which means they are coparcenaries to the estate of their forefathers.
Right.
And which means they have vested rights. You can go look it up in the law dictionary. And those vested rights are the rights of the heir. And the Supreme Court made four Supreme Court rulings concerning the contract clause in Article 1, Section 10, that the states cannot interfere with a contract.
Right.
And so we have a contract. A social compact is what the courts refer to it as. So we have a social compact that was created by the Treaty of Paris, because there's another Supreme Court case that says the rights of the people existed before the state. And that's true, because those rights came from Article 1 of the Treaty of Paris. And so we have vested rights, which are absolute rights. And that means that you can claim privileges and immunities at Article 4, Section 2, which U.S. citizens do not have.
Right.
That was the slaughterhouse cases, which they ruled that case because they said to do so, to give those citizens, which are citizens of the United States, would upend and totally upend our form of federalism that the Constitution created.
Right. Yeah. I wanted you to give a little clarity too. To the way I kind of describe it to people is there's the two bookends that are perfectly clear, that are inarguable. Is, let's say, on the one end, it's inarguable that there are a posterity that have all rights, privileges, and immunities. That's just in treaty, it's in law, it's a declaration that can't be argued. That's a fact.
And they also have a multitude of rights that is derived from the Treaty of Paris, which those people very cleverly, and I'm glad they did it, they reserved all those rights, which they enumerated the rights. They made sure that when they created that government, they went back and made amendments where they created enumerated rights, laying it down on the line to that government. When you have legal relations with us, here's the standards. You can't cross those lines. Well, they knew that they had all these other rights, natural and fundamental rights, which was derived from the Treaty of Paris. So in the Ninth Amendment, they reserved all those unenumerated rights.
Right. So on the one end, there's that truth. That is a fact. It's true. It's reality. It can be proven by, again, declarations, treaties, laws, Supreme Court rulings. That's a fact. So now on the other end, we have 14th Amendment citizens, which also is inarguable that we know, we've had, people on the show before where I made the point to them. Do you think that just anybody from anywhere in the world can just come over here and all of a sudden, because now they're an American, they have the same rights, privileges, and immunities as the people that founded the nation? And they'll admit, of course not. No. Right. And those people become 14th Amendment citizens. And the Supreme Court has ruled that 14th Amendment citizens are property and franchises owned by the U.S. government. So there's So there's that truth. So now in the middle, I want you to give some clarity to what seems to be the most nagging or concerning point to many people that aren't sure about their posterity, or they're not sure about this. They don't quite grasp the posterity reality per se, but they're also concerned about, well, what are you saying? My great grandfather was over here in World War I and he fought for this country. You're saying he doesn't have all the same rights. So let's give a little clarity to this issue.
Okay, let's say your great grandfather came over here and you're not one of the posterity. When he came over here, he came from another nation state where he had a sovereign, most likely, some other sovereign. And when they came, and even today, when they become that U.S. citizen, they have to take an oath of fidelity to that government. So as that's when you are clothed and granted that citizenship status, you now have a duty and obligation of fidelity to your new sovereign.
Right.
And but the essence of We the People is, say, maximum of law is that the Creator controls.
Right.
Okay. We the people created the United States of America. Now, essentially, you could say that we the people via the Congress. Now, some people say that the 14th Amendment's not legitimate and all that. I'm not going down that path. But just, we the people are Congress by an act of Congress. They created the 14th Amendment. And the 14th Amendment created the legal existence of this new status of a U.S. citizen. Now, so the question becomes, does the Creator, the government of the United States of America, have the authority to turn its creators into its property?
Right. And the answer, of course, is of course not. But the thing I want to try to keep, focusing in on here is this concern that many will bring up. The bottom line is it needs to be addressed. It needs to be discussed for clarity. I think that it's very easy to make the case that there's a posterity, that they are blood, they have privity of blood. That cannot be argued. It's in stone. It's inarguable.
Right.
So it can also be made clear, it's in stone, it's inarguable that there are 14th Amendment citizens that are not equal. They don't have the same rights, privileges, and immunities. But because there's this kind of floodway of people in the middle that will try to say, oh, well, I'm revoking my 14th Amendment citizen, or I want to be over here in the Republic. Would it be fair to say,
well, I would just say that, they could, I'm not telling them not to make that claim if they want to. I'm just saying, in my opinion, before you make a claim, you better have the court precedent to back you up.
Right.
You have some evidence to back you up. And my evidence about the people, or the posterity of the people, is that you have an inheritable bloodline birthright.
Right. And now, that is.
If you don't have that, see, that's under the law, to quote Thomas Jefferson, that's under the laws of nature, and nature's God. And all that birthright was clearly established in common law, except that if certain people at the time that our forefathers were before him, during when they're fighting that Revolutionary War, the king could revoke that birthright. And that's why they put that, there shall be no bills of attainder. That's exactly why they put that in there. That Congress, we're going to create a government. That government never has the authority to create a bill of attainder, which would separate us from our bloodline heirship.
Right. Yeah, and again, for me, it's crystal clear. I've made the point in other videos and other discussions, Grant, some of which you were on, some of which you weren't, that different people have their skills. You and my son are very similar in that you both were great readers and researchers and great memory and retention, and you're able to quote things. Whereas I'm the guy that somebody shows it to me, I see it, I know it's true. So now I'm conveying the story, I'm conveying the message, but I'm not necessarily good at quoting, the chapter and verse, so to speak. Which is why it's significant to have people like you and my son, come on as often as possible. I have a few people that are on with us right now. Hello to Joe. Hello to Lorianne. Do either one of you have any questions? I know Lorianne, when Lorianne was on last week, Adam, who's a strong patriot, he's opposed to this, fraudulent de facto government. He understands what we're saying. One of the concerns that I think was addressed by Adam, which I want to give some clarity to now as well for the benefit of the listeners, is he would kind of say, "Oh, you're just, you know, you're just doing the same thing that the Crown did. You're trying to create like you're superior to me, and you have privileges and rights that I don't have, and you're doing what they did. You're making yourself an aristocracy, and you don't have the right to do that," kind of argument.
Well, the Constitution gives us that right.
Right. No, I agree with you. And I did convey to Adam, I'm sorry, you might not like it, but it's
Well-
law and it's true. And he said, well, then I'll fight against your law.
No, that's not what he said.
I'm sorry, Joe. Hold on, Joe. I'll let you come in just a second. Please raise your hand, anybody, if you want to speak. As soon as I see your hand, I'll bring you right in. But I want to finish my point. I'm just trying to make the point that, Adam and I get along really good. I appreciate him. But that's pretty much all I could tell him was, I'm sorry, you might not like it, but it's law. And he says, well, I don't like your law. I'll fight against it. And I said, well, more power to you. And a big part of what we're doing here is we are going by law. You made a hold on, Joe. You made a great point, Grant, that do you have the evidence to back your position? Do you have the court rulings to back your position?
If you make a claim, do you have the evidence to back you up?
Right. And on that note, just end one more note. I want you to
clarify. I've got it right here.
Joe, then you can come in. Where was it again? I believe in the Constitution that no claim can be used to.
Okay. Well, if you go to the Supreme Court case and see, you have to separate the court cases between pre 47, 45 to before, because they started it in 33 and they completed it in 45 or 47 when they did the switch. So you have to look when those court cases were what they were saying in that time when we were in republic, as opposed to what the courts are saying today when you're in the federal territorial plane.
Right. That's a spectacular point as well.
So the one guy that says he wants to fight us, well, there's nothing for him to fight because, see, I'm not his sovereign.
Exactly.
I'm not U.S. citizen sovereign if you're one of the state citizens of the republics. Your sovereign is the United States. So I don't have any control over you. However, in my opinion, since you're the property of the United States, if you do anything to deny me my rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, then I have a cause of action not only against you, but your owner.
Right, exactly.
Well, I doubt that very seriously, but where's your court case that you claim now? Here's what we put together here. Like you said, you appreciate research and everything. First of all, you're creating another title of nobility. That's what you're doing. You're taking another class and you're saying this class is the elite and the lower class is not. Okay. So let's just bring out the facts here. What court cases did you say now that, because the founding fathers, okay? The founding fathers, all right, I got it all written up right here. Perfect. And Adam put this together too, that combats the entire argument that you guys are bringing right here. So it makes sense.
Go ahead, Joe. Go ahead.
Okay. So right here, Brady versus the United States. Okay. The summary of this case involved Robert Brady, who pleaded guilty to kidnapping under federal statute that carried a potential death penalty. He later argued his plea was coerced due to the threat of execution, violating his Fifth Amendment rights. The Supreme Court upheld his plea, ruling it was voluntarily and intelligent, setting a standard for plea bargaining. Relevance to posterity. Named directly, Brady focuses on criminal procedure, self-incrimination, and due process, not citizenship, inheritance of rights, or the meaning of posterity. It doesn't address who qualifies as a constitutional beneficiary or interpret the preamble. Its scope is procedural, not foundational to the debate. Okay, so the verdict was not relevant to posterity that you guys were claiming. Okay, because it's one of the cases you guys use.
Hold on. Okay, go ahead. Hold on.
In that same court case, I believe the court said that constitutional rights must be voluntarily waived.
It's a procedural claim. This is a procedural claim. When he brought this case, it has nothing to do with posterity.
Without fully reading it, I think what you're saying, what the court's saying, is that they're talking about the conditions precedents the condition proceedings between the parties.
Well, that's what you think. You say. You just said, I think that's what they're doing. Okay, but I'm telling you what the ruling is and what the summary of the ruling was and what it was about. This is what they say it was about. But anyway, let's go to the second case you guys.
Wait! Before you move to the second one, I'm going to be honest with you, Joe.
What? This is from the law library. This is what they say the case is about.
I'm going to be honest with you. What you just read right now to me had no relevance whatsoever to the claims we're making.
Exactly. So why do you guys use it? That was one of the cases you guys used and one of the calls. That's where we're getting this from.
What is your purpose of bringing that case up? What are you trying to say? It's not clear.
In the call where I and Grant were both present, some court cases were thrown out, and I attempted to scribble quick notes on paper to look them up later as they were as they're relevant to the subject, since we were not recording. So this is one of the cases that were cited in that call that night. So that's why I mentioned it.
Why you mentioned? But if
because it has nothing to do with posterity, Mike. That's what we're trying to tell you.
No, please, Joe, make yourself clear, because I don't know.
I don't know how much more clear I can
do you understand what he's saying or what he's trying to say, Grant? Because I don't.
Well, I'm having a hard time hearing everything he's saying, but it appears from what I'm getting from him, and the court was talking about, the conditions preceded between the legal relations of the parties, and you can waive anybody, and when you contract, anybody can waive their rights.
Exactly.
Okay, Grant, you use this case to strengthen your argument that posterity. This is why I'm using this case. That's why Mike's asking me. Why am I bringing up this case?
Right. Well,
so did it say anything about the posterity?
Yes. That's what you used this case on one of the calls about 3 weeks ago.
He just asked you, Joe, does it say anything about the posterity?
No.
So then what is the relevance?
Then why did Grant use it as a case to say that backs his posterity claims? That's what I'm trying to get to here. I'm trying to ask a question. Why did he use this case? Grant brought the case up, Mike.
Hold on, Joe. Okay. All right. Go ahead, Grant.
I'm just saying that case appears to be talking about the condition proceedings and the contractual agreements made between parties. But, if you don't say anything, the court's not going to hear it. And I don't know explicitly where anybody has went to court and made the claim under their citizenship status as a state citizen as one of the posterity.
So you don't have no case law backing you up, then you're saying, right?
And when you had legal relations with anybody, did you control that condition proceeding?
Okay. All right. So you don't have no case law then backing you up, because I thought you guys said you have cases that prove your posterity. Lorianne, can you help me out with this? Lorianne was talked to Adam too. So I'm trying to get to the bottom of this here, and I can't get a straight answer from anybody.
Well, I'm having a time here, but I'd suggest that
Joe, I'm going to mute you when you're not talking, because I think it's you that have birds chirping in the background or something.
No.
Anyway,
or that might
read the Slaughterhouse case.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, the court made a clear distinction between the newly created U.S. citizens and the citizens of the states in the Slaughterhouse cases.
All right, so Joe, the Slaughterhouse cases are much more germane. I think if you tried to snag that case and try to use it to somehow make an argument against Grant bringing it up was kind of moot, because the only reason that he would have
I didn't grab it. Grant brought the case up in one of the calls. Grant used that case.
Right, and he was probably bringing it up, like he said, just because it was a case referencing condition precedent, showing that the conditions, whether or what territorial jurisdiction you are in. Are you in that federal jurisdiction plane, or are you not? Are you in the republic?
Yeah.
Okay.
You'd have to consider in that case, was that ruling before or after the switch in time cases?
Did you get it? Did you hear him, Joe? That's another thing that needs to be taken into consideration, is whether that was a case that was made before or after the switching times cases.
And that was not,
I didn't bring the case up.
sometime in the early 40s.
All right, what's your next point, Joe? Or
I did
question?
not bring the case up. All right. Anyway, okay. Samuel Johnson, A Dictionary of the English Language, 1755. Posterity. Okay. The succeeding generations, descendants from. Okay. All right. The succeeding generations. This emphasis a temporal sequence. Those who come after collectively without restriction to a specific lineage. It's about time, not blood. Descendants. While this can imply a family descent, in 18th century English, it often carried a broader sense, future inhabitants or successors of a group, not just direct kin. That's from 1755 dictionary. The word posterity
I
definition.
guess from what you're saying, I could go over to Great Britain and make a claim to the throne that King Charles is sitting on.
If you were born there, you could.
Why does he get to sit on it and I don't?
Exactly. Well, but we don't have a king here, Grant. Where this is America, we have a constitution. That's why we fought the king.
But I'm just, if you go get a Black's Law Dictionary and look in there and go look up native citizen. Go look up privity of blood. Go look up heir.
Yeah, see, like I don't. Again, what you seem to have a problem, or Adam, and you have a problem with the word posterity. To me, it's crystal clear, and not only in a
Well,
modern.
I'm telling you what the 1755 dictionary says it means. And you're telling me what it means in 2025.
No. Read it again. Read it again, Joe.
Let's move on to the next point.
No, we'll read it again, but don't put your own words in there or add like.
I'm not. I'm reading it from the dictionary. Samuel Johnson's A Dictionary of the English Language, 1755. Posterity. The succeeding generation's descendants from Latin posterius. What comes after?
Stop, Joe. I told you to read it again so we can analyze what you're reading. Read it again when I say stop. Go ahead.
Yeah, but you can't pick apart little pieces. You got to read the whole thing.
No. We're going to analyze the whole thing. Go ahead, read it again.
You can't analyze a word in a dictionary. You take one word and then
read it.
Get meaning to another one.
No, because you've already contradicted yourself. Read it again.
No, I didn't. I'm reading the 1755 dictionary, Mike. What do you want to do? Change the words around?
Joe, read it from the beginning and let me say stop to make a point. Go ahead.
That's crazy. Samuel Johnson's A Dictionary of the English Language, 1755. The word posterity, comma, N period S, posterior, posteritas, Latin. The succeeding generations, comma, descendants, comma, from Latin posterior.
Okay. All right. So see, even the way you're reading it now is not the way you read it a minute ago. And when you first read it, you went over the word descendant very quickly, but clearly it said descendant.
Oh God! I wasn't trying to pull anything.
What are you laughing
I just
about?
read it.
What are you laughing about? It's funny to me.
You said I went over the word very quickly, like I was trying to do something slick.
No, you did. It's funny because when you were reading it earlier, you read it like surfing over and then trying to get to the end.
Right. You just tell me how you want me to read, okay? And I'll read it.
Right. Well, it seems to me it's pretty clear, Joe, that you guys are having a little bit of a frustration and difficulty with the obvious meaning of posterity.
We're not, Mike. We're just looking at the facts.
Which even right there, the first term it gives is descendant. So if you continue reading it, go ahead. But
there's a comma after that, Mike, from Latin posterius. You got to read the whole thing, Mike. You can't take one word and say, there it is. You got to read the whole thing.
No, but put it in proper perspective, Joe. Don't like skim over a word to get past a word, descendant real quick, and then try to get to the fluff at the end. Because any definition you look at in a dictionary, it'll give you, here's what it really means, but it could mean this, and it could mean that, and it could mean that, because people can give their twist.
But it doesn't. Hang on, Mike. Can I say something, Mike, please? It doesn't. In the dictionary, that's why you got to read the whole thing, because it tells you what each word means, but you kept interrupting me.
Right. Well, all I was asking you to do was read it slowly and accurately, not like you did the first time where you were trying to fluff over.
Okay. All right. Where did I stop now? Posteritas. The succeeding generations, comma, descendants, comma, from Latin posterius. What comes after in parentheses. Now, point.
Yeah.
There's a bullet point here.
Right. So you're already right. Now, so you already gave that initial definition before it even gets to a semicolon and a hyphen and where you're going on
But
to
those
other.
are important parts of the English language, Mike.
But
They mean
right. But
something.
what's the first one it gives? It's consistent with everything we've said. That's
The succeeding generations. The emphasis, a temporal sequence. Those who come after, comma, collectively, comma, without restriction to a specific lineage.
Stop. Again, those who come after collectively. Posterity is collective because it's more than one person. There's several people that are posterity. That would be a collective. You're trying to use the word collective as in everybody that's living here in America, there's the collective. Whereas
but that's not what it says, Mike. You stop.
No, it says collective.
It's not about blood.
No. It says collective, and it's referencing what it started from.
No, I'm telling you what it says. How you tell me
no? It started with descendants and then said collective. So it's talking about.
Oh, you don't know how to read a dictionary. Oh Lord. All right. That's what you wanted to believe. Okay.
No, another bullet. It's clear you're trying. Go ahead.
I'm just telling you what the 1755 dictionary says.
I see what you're right. I can see what you're struggling to try to do, Joe, but it's not working. Go ahead with your point.
What am I trying to do? I'm reading a dictionary. All right. Bullet point, descendants. While this can imply family descent, comma, in the 18th century, English is often carried a broader sense. Future inhabitants or successors of a group, not just direct kin. That's what it says.
Right, which is still the same thing. Not only are you now on the hypotheticals, because it's clearly going into, well, this could mean and could mean. It made clear what at the outstart what posterity is.
Just telling you what the dictionary says.
Hold on, Joe. It made clear from the outset what we've said of posterities and what the dictionary still says posterity is. But then you want to go on to the elaborations of the possibilities. Feel free to do that.
I'm trying to, and I can give you references, but you keep interrupting.
Right, but the point is that when you start doing that, it becomes interpretational because now you're going to say,
and that's what they did. John Locke, Shakespeare, Johnson's example. I'm going to give you all those.
Right. That's the point, though, is it started off telling you what it is, and then it starts going on another tangent of other possibilities that people can interpret it to.
Is there anyone else on here that can understand what I'm saying here? Or I mean, am I just fighting a losing? Because I don't understand what you don't understand. These people lived at that time period.
Oh, I understand perfectly well. I'm just pointing out, the first time you read it, you were trying to overdo the first part of what it was saying and jump into these ethereal secondary thoughts of possibilities that exist.
Not my thoughts, though. They're not my thoughts. These are thoughts that are documented in the dictionary.
Right.
Okay. All right. So John Locke, that posterity might know we have not loosely, comma, through silence permitted things to pass away as in a dream. Two treaties paraphrase. Here, Locke uses posterity to mean future generation broadly, not his personal heirs.
Right. So again, you're down the road here. Here, based on this etherealness, he's using it here to make this point. So you're trying to build a case to go against.
Not, Mike. That's what it says. I'm not. No, that's what it says. I didn't write this.
No, but what I'm saying is you're wanting to use the secondary and tertiary applications of that definition of possibilities to undo the very first thing it says of what a posterity is, a descendant. And more power to you for,
It's not me. It's them. I'm right. This is coming out of the pages of that time. It's not me. I didn't write it.
No, that's fine. That's the point I'm making, Joe, is that it clearly gave a definition that's consistent with everything we've said. My point is that you're wanting to use the secondary and tertiary to be oppositional to that initial definition that it makes.
Oh, Shakespeare now, posterity shall never find such another. Okay. This suggests a collective future audience, not a narrow family line. That's what it says in the dictionary.
So now we're talking about, Shakespeare. So great, the great writer and creative writer of all time. So now we're using concepts coming from Shakespeare. Great.
Well, I mean,
Okay.
you know,
All right.
I mean,
super.
we've got to go back to that time, right? You're
Well,
telling us what posterity means. We got to go back to that
Well,
time.
no,
to
they
see what it
did at the
meant.
outset of the definition, they did. But now they're going on, you're right, talking about, that's like if I give a definition today, but I start saying, but you know, Hollywood also, they do movies and they use this word to mean this, and therefore, you know what I mean? That's what you're doing. But
In 2025, that's how we would apply it today. But
Okay.
but 300 years ago, we wouldn't.
Right.
You know?
Well, they did arts and plays back then too, obviously.
I know. It was common usage at the time where posterity was not exclusively family lineage. It should also be noted that nowhere within the text of the founding documents does it clearly declare that family posterity is required as a qualification to be a representative or servant within government. Therefore, assumption or presumption of intent are not only inferred if it is impressed to mean that only family relatives are qualified. As the Constitution for the United States is a contractual compact.
Wait, what are you reading from
nations.
now? What are you reading from now? Like you were reading a definition and now you go off into some Wikipedia opinions?
Founding documents, Mike. Founding If you give me a chance to read the whole
No,
page,
but are you
are
you reading?
I mean, if I write the date down on it, it's flawed. It's no good.
No, but I want to know what you're reading, because now it sounds like you're reading a what's the word I'm thinking of when somebody's writing like an article of an opinion about something. What is that referred to again? What's the word I'm thinking of?
Can you let me finish the page and then to dissect?
Yeah, page, but what are you reading? Because you started off reading a definition and you didn't even clarify what you.
I will cite everything I read, Mike. Okay.
Well, please cite before you read it.
Come on. I'm not going to go from page 1 to page 8 because you want to dissect one word on page 1.
No, it makes sense for you to cite what you're going to read, Joe. Joe, you don't go out and just pick a bunch of things that sound good for you to try to make.
When you read a book, you don't start at the last page.
But you cite what you're reading from.
I will. All right.
Well, cite from the outset.
No, I don't know where the heck I was.
I'm going to read from Joe Schmo's opinion or something. You know.
All right, let's go to the founding fathers then. Let's go to the founding fathers. I'll go to page 3. Let's go to page 3.
What are you reading from?
I'm reading an email I got from a law library. Okay?
Oh, great. Okay. All right. All right. Go ahead, Jim.
All right. Founding fathers. Much of this debate is centered around the intent of the writers. The moral intent that was expressed in their writing of the words that their men fought and died to secure in the revolution is extremely important. I feel like their intention was very clear, and the notion that only a bloodline posterity that essentially creates a new nobility or genetical inherent right to rule is extremely I can't pronounce that word. Analytical to the revolution itself. Now, the Federalist Papers, right? In Federalist number 78, Alexander Hamilton describes the Constitution as safeguarding liberty through an independent judiciary with no limit of limiting rights to a genetic elite. The focus is on institutional, durability, not lineage. You want to stop me there?
Yeah, please. I mean, you know, I was going to stop you a minute ago when it was, 2 points. First, you said from a law. I'm like, oh, great. Okay. Of course, what's interesting to me, Joe, is you yourself know that there's all kinds of oppositional stuff put out to anything relative.
So then how do we research our lineage, Mike? How do we find our posterity then? Because if everything's all fake out there,
you're going to a law. You're getting stuff from attorneys, with their opinion.
No attorney.
Well, if it's coming from a law office,
it's a researcher.
And the person said my opinion, right? They said in my view or my opinion or I think. So
Lord.
Obviously people that are opposed to it are going to formulate an opinion in opposition.
Well, that's like your opinion, Mike. That's what we're trying to get to here. Your nobility, I think. I heard Grant say I think a couple of times. I didn't go, you think. Come on.
He didn't say no.
Yes, he did. He said, I think.
That's not the point. The point
the
point is that you are reading, like you said, some email from a law you're trying to, you've already stated, you and Adam, that you're opposed to the position we hold, and that's fine, and that's why we're having this conversation. I'm just telling
Exactly.
you, as it's like you're grasping at straws, in my opinion. I see
Well,
you.
that's your opinion. Let's read the
Right.
facts.
It appears to me you're grasping at straws because you don't like the reality.
All right. What's the Naturalization Act of 1790? Early Congress allowed immigrants to become citizens after 2 years, granting them and their descendants full rights. This contradicts any notion that rights were reserved for colonial bloodlines. Am I right or wrong?
Stop. Yeah. Rights, privileges, immunities. It didn't tell them they had rights, privileges, and immunities, did it?
It said they have full rights.
Rights, privileges, and immunities.
Full rights. That's what it says.
Well, obviously the word rights doesn't cover rights, privileges, and immunities, or it wouldn't say rights, privileges, and immunities. It would just say rights. There's a difference between rights and privileges and immunities because they're three separate words and they're all mentioned. If that wasn't the case, then why say three separate words? Just say rights.
Okay, Mike. Okay. Constitutional
Convention. Hold on, Joe. Grant wants to say something.
In U.S. versus Valentine, the Supreme Court ruled that the only absolute and unequivocal right of a U.S. citizen is the right of residency pursuant to that clause in the 14th Amendment.
Okay. All right. Constitutional Convention records from 1787 reveal debates about governance and power, not racial or familiar exclusivity. The preambles, "We the people," was understood to encompass all people of the new nation, including naturalized ones, not just the founding bloodlines.
What are you reading from now, Joe?
That's absolutely not true because it didn't include the slaves at the time, and it didn't include the Native Americans.
But this is from 1787. These are debates, debates about governance and power.
It absolutely can be proven that did not apply to Native Americans nor the enslaved.
Okay, but there were white people over here that came from other countries, right? At that time.
Well,
right? Well, I don't know what you. Well, I don't know what you mean.
What do you mean? I mean, did white people come over here?
Because it's been made clear many times over, Joe, in our conversations that the posterity, that the founding fathers were formerly subjects to a sovereign, to the King George, and they are the ones that broke free from that subservience unto that king. Those are the men. And those are the men that we're referring to. So even if
I'm going by what Adam Grant just said, he said the Indians and the slaves, obviously that was not intended for them. That's what he says. That's true. But there were other white people across from other. I mean, maybe maybe there were Spaniards over here. I mean, I don't know what the population census of America or the colonies at that time.
Well, hold on, Joe. Let Grant go.
George III. And if they were not the subjects of King George III, then the Treaty of Paris has nothing to do with them.
Okay. Citizenship expansion. The Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, gives Congress power to establish naturalization, which it's done since 1790. Naturalized citizens and their descendants, millions of Americans, enjoy full rights, contradicting any blood-only restriction, right? Limiting rights to blood.
Hold on, Joe.
Let me say one thing. Yeah, they were allowed, Congress were given the authority to give naturalization to new people who came to this country. And at that time, they had to be naturalized as state citizens. But today, that's not happening. They are being naturalized as U.S. citizens.
Okay. All right. But court cases too that you always
didn't even exist at that time.
Okay, well, the court cases that you reference a lot too, also, like for instance, the Swift case. Let's see here. Well, let's go over this one. March 1st, Alabama.
I'm sure Alabama doesn't have anything to do with what we're talking about.
Okay, what about Ashwinder versus Tennessee, Valley of Authority?
That really doesn't have anything to do with what we're talking about.
1946, though. You know, and I mean, these are cases that posterity was
Justice
mentioned.
Brandeis, because he wanted to ensure that to make it very difficult for anybody to go into court and challenge the Social Security Act. And basically, what the Ashwander case said was, if you take the benefit of a statute, you can't then turn around and question its constitutionality. In other words, if you take the benefit, you lose your right to bring the issue controversy into court.
Yep. Well, the 14th Amendment, when it was created, when the 14th Amendment was created, they didn't put in there, well, okay, now this is only for the 14th Amendment people, but the posterity citizens, they can still get to enjoy their rights. Everybody became a corporate citizen at that time through the Acts of 1871.
Say it again, Joe. Slow down, man. Relax.
Well,
slow down.
He brought earlier on. He mentioned the 14th Amendment, right? When the Civil War was fought, obviously we know what happened after the Civil War. The United States became a corporation, and all the citizens became 14th Amendment citizen slaves, right? Because we had the resident person, or what? It changed the word citizen to person, or something, or citizen to person to citizen. Which was it?
Well, the 14th Amendment had nothing to do with the citizenship of the people that existed here as state citizens before the Civil War.
Why not? Yes, it did. Sure, it did. The whole country was affected by that. Whatever, the states that were involved in the Civil War.
The 14th Amendment, due to the Dred Scott decision, the only way that those formerly indentured enslaved people could be made a citizen or granted legal existence in this country. And that's what the Supreme Court said in the Slaughterhouse case, was about they had to make an amendment to the Constitution.
Yeah. All right.
And that amendment created another citizenship class. And
okay,
the Supreme Court had ruled that, you can go read the Slaughterhouse case, the Supreme Court clearly went over that to me.
Okay. Well, also during our conversation last week, we got into a big debate about nobility. The rejection of nobility. The founders despised titles and crowns as false constructs.
Chisholm versus Georgia said that at the end of the Revolutionary War that sovereignty devolved upon the people. But it went on to say essentially that, that every man was a sovereign. I'm not your servant and you're not mine.
Yeah, well, I know. So yeah, false constructs. The Constitution bans titles of nobility. I mean, but Mike was saying that remember last week, Mike?
There can't be a nobility because we were all equal. We were all equal in our sovereignty. We were the free people of this nation.
Well, I agree. Consent of the governed. Authority stems from the people's agreement, not divine mandate or line lineage.
The 14th Amendment.
Well, I'm just saying that the authority
Amendment and created a subject class. Go read it. They created a subject class citizen.
If rights
jurisdiction thereof.
If rights were tied to a colonial DNA, it undermined the consent, creating a new elite class. I mean, it's common sense. The nobility, we're creating a whole noble class of people because they have more rights than the people living here or the ones that came here. How could that be? It goes against the divine mandate.
I mean, all I can say is you go read the Supreme Court cases. It's not me saying it. I mean, they clearly go back to recognition of the heir.
And which cases that what? Give me two cases that you claim this posterity on. Two cases.
Okay, the one is what's the one that William Joss quotes all the time? Mike. Happenstance. That's it. Basically, they said in that court case, if your parents were here at the time of the formation of this nation, there is no question of your citizenship. And the only citizenship that existed at that time was the citizenship created by Article 1 of the Treaty of Paris.
Well, what about the Eric Railroad Company versus Tompkins case? This decision overruled the Swift-Tyson in 1842, holding that federal courts in diversity cases must apply state substantive law, not a general federal common law. It clarified the balance between federal and state.
That was the last switch in time case. Because see, the court was no longer operating. They had to switch because they're no longer operating in the republic in legal relations to state citizens and that government, which they have a due process right under the Fifth Amendment. However, they switched and said, okay, now we're in the federal territorial plane, and if you're over there in that federal territorial plane, there is no federal common law.
But how could a court do that? A court,
Just a minute.
Hold on,
they
Joe.
can't do that.
Joe, hold on.
Court
Let
can't
it
do
finish.
that.
Yeah, they went against all case precedents and all the switch in time cases. They went against all previous court cases. But in that case, they ruled that there is no common law in the federal territorial plane. However, it goes on to say in there that Congress has no power to take away the common law of the people in their states.
All right, I'll give somebody
And let me
else.
hold on, Joe. Let me interject a thought here. So this is where, again, if I were to put a bow on this conversation,
Oh,
it's
boy,
it's
Joe.
clear that although you don't like the notion of two classes of citizenship, when it comes to law
It's
and
not about
status,
liking.
and when it comes to law and status and jurisdiction in the realm of governments made by man, there are at least two classes. There is a 14th Amendment citizen that is given that status, and there's the founders of the nation, the posterity, we the people, the founders of a nation who were formerly subjects to the king that broke away and became sovereigns and established unto themselves and their posterity. And then the others that were clothed in a 14th Amendment citizenship are deemed to be property and franchises of the federal government. That's the law. That's the reality.
I mean, I'm just telling you what founding documents say. You know, I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. You can analyze it and disagree, Mike, all you want. I'm just telling
No,
you
you're the one disagreeing. We're telling
I'm not disagreeing. I'm telling you what they say.
No, so far, I mean,
what the Constitution says.
we're telling you what the Constitution says, and we're telling you
No,
what
you're telling me what a court said. You're telling me what a court said.
No, we're telling you we're telling you what definitions say, what Constitution says, what Supreme Court rulings say. What
year did that?
How can a court just strike millions of citizens' rights away? How can a court do that?
Because they never had the rights to begin with.
That makes no sense.
And you know, the reason that I think the reason you're saying it makes no sense and the position that you're kind of holding is the one that's based on, hey man, I'm here and I'm an American. I live here. And
yeah, I was born here. Yeah.
Right. So, you know, hey man, and actually, Joe, to be honest with you, I don't know why you're taking issue with it, because you told me your family goes back all the way to the 1700s living here, making you posterity. So if you know why,
the same reason the founders took issue with it against the king.
What are you taking issue with?
Because they created a country that was a whole new world, a country free, a constitution.
No,
the Declaration of
what I don't get, Joe,
we still have an allegiance with a king. We don't have no allegiance with that king over there.
No, we the people are all sovereign, and if we the people collectively, meaning the posterity, unite and take back our government, then we have our land back. But if you take the position of any Tom, Dick, or Harry from any in the world gets to come over here and just because they're an American, they've got all rights, privileges, and immunities equal to us and our forefathers who gave their lives, then I don't understand why you would even take that position.
Sovereigns instead of one. They established a country that had multiple sovereigns instead of one sovereign.
Right. If you heard what my son said, they established this country to have multiple sovereigns, not just one. And like Grant said a few minutes ago, he's a sovereign. You're a sovereign. We're all sovereigns. We own.
I don't have issue with that. But you're telling me that some people aren't sovereign. You know, the people that were born here. You guys say they have a direct lineage bloodline to these people. I mean, you're telling me that a guy that was born here in 1837 or 1865 that fought in the Civil War isn't an American citizen and can't enjoy the rights of the Constitution?
Well, maybe they are. Maybe they can prove that their ancestors were state citizens.
Bloodline.
But all I'm going by is what the Happenstadt case said. If you go back to the founding, if your ancestors go back to the founding of this country, I'm not going by what an attorney says or what this person's legal opinion was. I want a Supreme Court case. And then that Supreme Court case, they said, if you go back to your ancestors, go back that were here at the time of the founding of this country, there is no question to your citizenship.
And your citizenship is relative to your status, which is relative to your either
Legal relations.
right, your legal relations. And those who have legal relations of a sovereign have all rights, privileges, and immunities. And those who have legal relations of a non-sovereign, somebody that's not a sovereign, is clothed in a 14th Amendment citizenship, which is a property and franchise of the government. It's just that simple.
In fact, the last speech that President Barack Obama gave, he said, U.S. citizens must be allowed to fully operate their franchise. And I agree.
What year was that, Grant, the Happenstadt case? I can't find it.
Find what, Joe?
The Happenstadt case. I can't find it. What year was it?
It was after the ratification of the 14th Amendment. It was in the late 1800s, but it was after the 14th Amendment was ratified.
Josh said it was after the 14th
So it was
Amendment.
sometime after, a decade or so after the American, not Revolution, Civil War.
Decade or so after the Civil War, according to Josh.
Wasn't there a date 1808 that was significant to?
Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned that already.
Read the case, Joe. You got to read it from beginning to end.
I gotta find it first before I can read it.
Minor versus Happersett.
Minor versus
Happersett.
Oh, Minor versus Happersett. All right.
Hepper.
Hepper.
Yeah, Happersett.
Happersett. Minor versus Happersett.
That judge dissects the meaning of citizenship in that case.
Yeah, you read the entire thing all the way through, right, John?
Yeah. And it was
I don't know
on
if Lori Ann wants to say something or not. I don't
the
know.
question of citizenship in that particular case came up when a woman was seeking rights to vote. Women didn't have rights to vote at that time. So the judge, basically, outlines citizenship statuses and the meaning of them. 14th Amendment citizen, in contrast to a state citizen, and time frames like Grant had mentioned. Going back to 1808 and all. You just got to read the case. Yeah, it's long to read these cases, but you just got to read them. It's in there.
And that goes back
to one case, Happersett, right? That's what
minor versus Happersett. Yeah, and I think one of the things that needs to be added to the conversation here again is, which again, this is why I would think you would grasp this, Joe. There's a difference between the Republic and that federal territorial plane, which is the current federal fraudulent government that everybody's not happy with. The people mostly that should not be happy with it are the ones who have been frauded out of their birthright, out of their vested posterity rights. Those are the ones that should not be happy the most and should be seeking to reestablish what they have a birthright privilege to.
Yeah. Okay. So the Happersett case, it says right here, the opinion concluded with the statement that the Constitution of the United States does not confer the right of suffrage upon anyone. This was clarified ex parte Yarborough.
You can't read a brief summary of what the case was about. You have to read the case. That's what I'm trying to tell you. You can't read a brief on it. You got to read the actual case. And you know what? You might read a 40-page case and discover that the point that we're making is on one line. That's why you got to read it, man.
And but what opinion does the court dissent from that case? You guys can't give your private interpretation of what that case means. What is the official opinion of that case?
Grant already told you. So that's one sentence of that entire case, but you got to read the case.
See that, and that goes again to the point I was making earlier that everybody has different capacities and abilities and gifts Some people are excellent at reading and they'll stay up all night. They'll read for hours and days at a time. They have great retention, great memory. My son does that. Grant does that. That's not my forte. My forte is I'll sit down at Grant's table and he'll put up 100 papers in front of me and read the quotes and I can see him and I can see the dates and the times and the judge's name and see what it says in one line. Yep, that's what it says. And it's consistent with that, and it's consistent with this and this and this and this, and that makes perfect sense to me. So I see the story. I see the whole logic and the rationale of it, and it makes perfect sense. And obviously in this conversation, we've been
You
going
got to know case. You got to read case law, and you have to understand case law. You just can't read a case and come to your own conclusion to what the case means. You just
No,
don't.
you can't.
It's not going to work. You start citing cases in a lawsuit, you're going to get thrown out of federal court if you're not. If you're not, I'm going to tell you that right now.
You're saying that, Joe, without even reading the case. Where my son has stayed up for hours all night reading the entire case from start to finish.
If you've got federal cases and you've already filed a controversy in federal court, because I know you were saying that. Well, I've done it, and I'll tell you right now, what their attorneys do is they cite a bunch of case law when they're fighting you. That's what they do. I've seen attorneys, when I went against Miami-Dade County, their attorneys were citing cases from 1970. Just throwing a bunch of case law out there. That's what attorneys do, man. They throw out case law. Oh, but this case ruled on this and that. And that's what they do. They cite case law. So you can do the same thing, can't you? You can cite case law.
Oh, yeah, but they better have something to do with the case.
Precisely. Yes, thank you. You just proved our point. Precisely.
Lori, did you have a question or a comment? Guess not. I did want to point out that the thing that's important to remember in all of this is that the posterity have to do with the Republic.
Well, the Happersett case is really all about a woman, and she's not a male citizen. That's what it's about.
About a woman.
Yes, it's about a woman in voting. I get it. But in that, the judge breaks down the meaning of citizenship.
Signed for the cause that she was not a male citizen of the United States, but a woman. She therefore pursued him in one of the inferior state courts of Missouri for willfully refusing to place her name on the first list of registered voters.
Read the case. Don't read Google, Wikipedia.
You can't do that, though. You can't do that. This is a delivered opinion of the court chief justice, Josh. You can't come to it your own opinion. I'm reading the opinion of the chief justice. That's what they're going to go by.
I get it, Joe. That's the body of the case. But in it, the judge is giving a full breakdown of the meaning of citizenship. And you'll discover that when you read the case.
Right, and then he'll
sit down.
Right, and he'll put the essence of that in his brief, in his closing argument.
But you're saying by the stroke of a pen, a judge can define what my citizenship rights are? They could throw away the founding fathers and what we fought for? No, a court doesn't have the authority to do that.
No, they do have the authority to say who a state citizen surely is by fact.
Really?
Absolutely. Especially when they know that you got to remember too, Joe, you're going back in time when these judges, they were older men. So they were in their youth when this nation was built.
They lived in the Republic.
They lived in the Republic.
They lived it.
They were posterity. They knew it was their nation.
I don't know. I mean,
Any other points on your paper though from Adam?
I'm waiting for Lori Ann or someone else to say something, I mean, geez. Everybody else wants to talk and they don't say nothing.
Yeah, well,
it's just me talking.
Yeah, well, I think a lot was said, to be honest with you, in this call. In fact, we'll just carry on next week. I'll cut it short now. We don't need to belabor it. We gave Lori Ann an opportunity to speak.
I know. Yeah, I agree.
So, and Adam didn't come on. He was invited. So, I think we addressed quite a bit. Substantial bits of information in this video. So we'll go ahead and end this conversation tonight. I appreciate everybody coming in. Joe, Tave out of Ohio, Nick came in from Texas, Lorianne.
Yeah, I mean, nobody else has an opinion on what was said. That's the purpose of these videos, is to get everyone's thoughts and could get information out there, and then nobody says anything.
Well, you got to remember too, Joe, that we're literally the tip of the iceberg. We're the tip of the spear. We are the first and only ones that are finally, after all these decades, near more than 100 years, putting forth the effort to bring awareness back to the posterity of who they are and what they have that they've been blindsided of and deprived of, so that they know that they are the sovereigns, they are the authority. This is their nation. They're the owners of it, and they're the ones that put the government in place. And that government has nothing to do with ruling the sovereigns. There's separation between the two, which Grant elaborated on. And anybody in their common sense mind knows that anyway. Even all these patriot movements know that much. They know that there's this fraudulent, corporate government, but they believe they're part of the republic. Well, they should be standing with us. Where are they at? I sent out an invitation to over 200 people today.
Well, Mike.
8 people.
Mike, I got a job, right? I started last night working third shift as a security officer at a homeless shelter, right?
Yeah, and
I'm sitting there looking at all these people in this shelter, and I'm like, what a bunch of idiots. I mean, this is our community here. These people are uneducated, dumb. Most of them, anyway. I'm listening to their conversations, and they're talking about nothing.
We've talked about this over the years, Joe, that obviously the television, the idiot box, the movies, gaming, the stupidity, the food, the poison. Yes, they've been dumbing down and stupefying for one reason, because they know the posterity are the sovereigns and have the power. And that's why they tried to kill them in in the Civil War and World War I.
That's gotta be the agenda. It's gotta be the agenda.
It is the agenda. Anything you want to say about that reality, Grant, real quick?
There's a war on, and I can assure you that your enemy knows who they are. But unfortunately, the people of this nation, as we the people, don't know who they are. And they're ignorant. What is that Bible verse? My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge.
Yeah.
And they certainly are being destroyed in multiple ways, in my opinion. Like you said, through poisons, through the food, through the water, through spraying chemtrails in the air. You can go on and on and on.
Yeah, the movies, the godless, immoral, perverted, corrupt television set and movies and gaming, and the social trends, inking up and graffitiing their bodies, and they're destroying their bodies.
They're all on medications. Yeah, they're all on
Yeah.
medication and everything. It's like crazy.
It's all about destroying those who founded this nation. If you look at the people that founded this nation, they were brilliant. They were geniuses. They didn't all agree on everything, but they came to terms with their final social compact, their final agreement. And they made sure that they secured those blessings for themselves and their posterity. So that posterity needs to wake up and take back what they own.
Yeah. Well, that I can agree with, because I'm telling you, it's interesting when you sit back and you look from the outside in. It's like, man.
Any last words, Grant?
Well, I was going to tell you, if you want to get a Black's Law 10th, and go to the A section and look up artificial person. And then go to the P section and look up artificial person in that section. And compare the two and put it together.
Yep.
I thought it was human being. Look up human being, and it says something crazy or something.
Well, when you deal with law, when you're dealing with the laws of men, you're dealing with an artifice.
Oh, yeah. I remember I remember what you're talking about. Yeah.
So, but I'm saying that, the citizenship of we the people has to do with the laws of nature and nature's God.
Nature's God, yeah.
Via our DNA, which cannot be altered by men.
Which they're trying to do now through using certain things that can be punctured into a bloodstream. I'll say no more.
Yeah.
And
And make
Yeah.
and make you where that patented devices they put in you, once those patented devices become part of your genetic makeup, could they legally make a claim to you?
yes, actually, I
Yeah,
need to, I
when they
need,
chip us.
I need to find that case because a very good attorney that I know specifically sent me that case. Albert Diamond sent me that case, Josh. The Supreme Court has ruled that if they cannot lawfully, I'm paraphrasing it, but the Supreme Court did rule that the science community cannot lawfully tamper with nature, or they cannot call anything that's natural patented or ownership if it's
Right.
completely natural. But if they can alter it, if they can alter the gene, then it's no longer natural and they can claim it as property.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if they inject you with something that alters your genes, they can lawfully call you their property. I need to find out what the case that was again.
Yeah, we
Albert
got,
Diamond sent me
all
that
these
to
people that
read
got
that.
shot up with that virus, man. They got strands of freaking crap falling.
mRNA,
Yeah.
gene altering. Yeah. So yeah, the Supreme Court has already ruled that if they can alter nature, they can do genetic alterations, then they can own it. It becomes a
Crazy,
patent.
man.
And if they could do that to a human being, they genetically alter the human being, they own that human being.
It's gonna be hell on earth, man. Hell on earth.
Well, they're in the process of doing it. And therein lies
Oh.
our motivation, Joe and Adam, and anybody else that thinks they're in opposition to us. No, we're calling for sovereigns who are sovereigns to stand as sovereigns and fight the good fight with us.
No, that's not what he said in opposition, Mike. His opposition was the fact that you were creating another class of citizenship, and that's
No,
what we
because
got to be careful of.
No, go back and watch last week's video.
I
MJ
did.
and especially MJ, made it very clear we're not creating another class of citizens. We're declaring our sovereignty.
You
We
may
didn't
not be
create-
doing that, but it sounds like you are.
Well, that's why we're having these conversations. Go ahead, Grant.
You know, we the people, we didn't necessarily create that status, but it was granted to us because we won the Revolutionary War and got it granted to us by the sovereign King George III. And we didn't necessarily create the 14th Amendment, but apparently it's considered case law according to the Supreme Court.
Right, which is an interesting point because that goes back to, Grant alluded to it earlier, that some people would try to argue the 14th Amendment wasn't ratified or doesn't exist or it's false or fake, whatever. And in the Republic, that would actually be true, which is why people want to go back to the original Constitution, which does not have a 14th Amendment. So what I would say is the people who have enough left in them still to know that they've been being dumbed down and stupefied by Hollywood and the television and the drugs and the junk food and the poisons and the chemicals and the stuff they inject in you. Turn to God Almighty, say, forgive me, help me, guide me, lead me, direct me. Let me be part of your righteous army and stand up for my sovereignty and dignity and rights. And let me do the right thing. Turn your life around because God can do miracles in anybody's life. So
yeah, but see, Mike, though, you got to be careful. It's like when MJ said, "Oh, you're not an American citizen." You got to be careful when you say that to people because now
sometimes people say things in jest. She was just really trying to make it. She was just trying to make a point. I heard it when she said it, and she clarified that for you and said, "I didn't mean to say it that way, Joe." That's not
I know. I understand that.
Right.
I'm just saying.
Sometimes people can say things in jest, and it can be taken the wrong way. She was just you know what she was trying to say.
I understand that. I do, but a dummy out there who's a bubblehead won't. And those are the people we got to watch out for.
Well, that's true. But then again, it could also be argued that the dummies that are out there are going to be dummies, and we're not looking for the dummies. We're looking for the other smart people that are just still sleeping and waking up.